Thank you very much. I know you got a lot going on today. Do you have one game this week, or is it a Thursday, Saturday double dip?
I got another Thursday, Saturday double dip. We got Jacksonville State and Sam Houston tonight, and then more Mountain West on Saturday. We've got San Diego State at Nevada Saturday night. I had to pause and think there for a second. These last couple of weeks have been insane, but another fun weekend of football coming up.
Taylor,
I'm sorry, Paul, but you are with both ESPN and CBS. Is it usually one or both network? How does that work out?
Yeah, this year I'm really almost all CBS at this point. I've done a couple early in the year with ESPN when I was open, but majority of my work this year will be with CBS. These are both CBS. So these midweek CUSA games, I'm back here for UTEP and Sam Houston on a Wednesday night, and then we've got a Louisiana Tech in a couple weeks on a Tuesday night. So that CUSA package, it's the same thing that the MAC does in November, right? Just getting on linear television, and so they do it earlier in the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday game, and so it'll be interesting. Sam Houston is not playing any of their games on campus because they're redoing their facility. So all Sam Houston, quote unquote, home games are at Shell Stadium where the Houston Dynamo play.
Taylor, this week there's a couple interesting ones. Ohio State plays Illinois, and Illinois, when they're not playing a team Indiana just stroked them. Then they had a really back and forth win against USC. I don't really know what to make of them, and I would tend to think that Ohio State has a genuinely huge athletic advantage against them that's going to be difficult for them to overcome.
I think that's in the trenches. That's probably right. I think we saw that a couple weeks ago with Illinois against Indiana, where they didn't match up nearly as well on the offensive and defensive lines. I think Ohio State, what I'm looking forward to in this game is an opportunity for Ohio State to be tested again, really for the first time since Texas. I think they have, a week ago, they did what they were supposed to against Minnesota, but they dominated Minnesota. It'll be interesting to see early kick, right? Big noon kickoff, having to get up, it'll be 11 a.m. Central. What do they look like on the road? I think this is probably the toughest road game for them so far this season, but you're exactly right. I think for the offensive and defensive lines perspective, Ohio State's going to have the advantage in the trenches, and I agree with you. I think they win this game. I think they probably win this game by multiple scores.
Taylor, how did you unpack Cincinnati's absolute first half demolition of Iowa State and subsequently a win at the end that looked a lot closer than it actually was?
Yeah, I think Brendan Sorsby looked a lot better in that game than he did against Nebraska going all the way back to week one. I think, Iowa State, their corners being banged up on the outside. It's a 3-3-5 defense where they like to keep everything in front. It's a really good pass defense. And so with the corners being out, they played a lot of soft coverage, and it opened up a number of opportunities for Cincinnati to run the football. And they took advantage of that. They ran the ball extremely well. And I think, you look fast forward this week, they're on the road. Iowa State is at Colorado, and that's a skinny line. It's like a 1.5 favorite that Iowa State, last time I looked. And people look at that and say, man, why is that? This should be an Iowa State team that you would think would be favored by 10 plus points. But I think Colorado, the thing that they do well on the offensive side right now is run the football. And if Iowa State can't solve for that, it's going to be a challenge. For Cincinnati, you think back to the win that they had against Kansas, having to claw their way back. That was a huge win for them on the road against a Kansas team that I think is a pretty good team. Kansas' only losses are Missouri, who's ranked, and Cincinnati, who's ranked. So Cincinnati kind of playing their way into that top echelon of teams in the Big 12. It feels like the Big 12 right now, it's Texas Tech, and then there's this group of 4 or 5 teams right behind them. They're kind of in that next tier, and Cincinnati has played their way into that group.
That, redo of Pac-12 After Dark, Big 12 style, Arizona State at Utah, it should be a doozy this week. I think both those teams, and they're different enough to where that one's going to be a tough one to figure out.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated. We talked about Inside the 12, our show this week. We talked about and kind of broke this down. Utah plays a ton of man defense, and against Sam Leavitt and Arizona State, with Tyson on the outside, their top target, who I think is top 2 or 3 receivers in the country. Do they change up their scheme at all? Because number one, I think Tyson They get Moss back as well, who's been injured for most of this season. So their second target for Arizona State is back on the offensive side. If they play a ton of man, you open up the opportunities for downfield shots if they can convert one or two. And also, Sam Levitt is a phenomenal athlete. We know that against man defense, if he breaks contain and your DBs have backs to the quarterback, that's where those big chunk plays in the run game come from. So look, this is on opposite of our game Saturday night. So this will be one that, kind of have the iPad over in the corner and kind of try to keep an eye on what's going on in that game, because this will be of the games this weekend that are fantastic. Red River shootout among them. Ohio State we talked about. This one I think is the most under the radar game that has big implications for the Big 12 and down the line in the college football playoff.
Texas OU. Obviously, there's a decision to make, and it may be playing mind games. I don't know, Taylor, with Napier. You're a quarterback. What do you think? Do you think it's possible for him to have that surgery and play 3 weeks later?
I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not a doctor, but I don't, if you told me I broke anything in my hand and I had to have it cut on and then I got to go throw 2 or 3 weeks later, I mean, John Mateer's a lot better player than I was. So, maybe it's just different for him. But no, I think it's probably extremely unlikely. If he plays, I think you're talking about, is it braced up and he's in there for some sort of run game? I don't know. It's interesting. I think OU fans are just as surprised as Texas fans are that Texas is favored in this game. It's a tight line right now, assuming Napier plays. That line jumps up to almost a touchdown for Texas if Napier doesn't play. And so, look, Texas has their backs against the wall. They have not looked good against the two teams, Ohio State and Florida, that have really good defensive fronts. They have not looked good against those teams. And obviously, they got the 2 losses, but they got pushed around. Offensive line play has been dragged all week. Here's your opportunity in a rivalry game. If you can't show up and challenge in this game, then, for Texas, we're talking about a long season in the back half of the season and them just trying to get to a bowl with some of the challenges that they still have if they can't get a win over OU this week.
Go ahead.
How encouraging was it to see DJ Lagway play the way that he did last weekend?
He looked more free, didn't he? I mean, it was, I don't know that their commitment to running the football, I thought, was number one, it was impressive. And number two, on the other side, again, for Texas, that was surprising. They got pushed around quite a bit, but that was by far the best that DJ had played this year. It looked like the version of DJ that we saw in the back half of last year. And this is, it's the same for every quarterback. You run the football well, it sets up everything else, and it gives you a lot of confidence. And he played with a lot of confidence. And now it's the same thing for Florida fans where, a year ago, they're calling for Napier's job, and then it gets to this year, they start out slow, they lose to South Florida, same thing. Then they beat Texas, and now it's, well, maybe we don't want to get rid of our guy. And so I don't know. Florida, I think, will be in limbo again through the next couple of weeks. We'll see how that progresses for them. But for DJ Lagway, that was, I thought, by far his best performance so far this season.
Taylor, that's what I was going to ask you, is explain what's really going on, or what can be going on in a locker room like that, where it seems like they do have love for Coach Napier. He's done well recruiting when you look at the rankings, and then you look at the way that their defense plays, the way that their offensive line plays, Jaden Baugh, Dallas Wilson, DJ Lagway. A lot of coaches would love to just trade rosters with him straight up and down. No questions asked, I'll trade rosters with you. Is it just that he hasn't been able to get out of his own way with the play calling and the game management at Florida?
Maybe. Going back to the South Florida game, what was most surprising to me in that game was the lack of physicality for Florida. If you look at how they pushed around, especially on the defensive front against Texas, they did such a good job making life uncomfortable for Arch Manning, and Texas ran the ball for under 100 yards against Florida. That version of that defense and the effort that we saw in the physicality wasn't really there against South Florida. And the downfield passing attack, it looked like this was the first game this season that Florida said, and Napier said, we're going to be a run-first team. We're going to stay ahead of the sticks. We're going to get this thing to third and short opportunities. We're not going to fall behind the chains and let Texas pin their ears back and come after us. And the number one thing that you said a second ago that has stood out for me for the last couple seasons, these kids play hard for Billy Napier, and we see it all the time, especially in the portal era. You can spot a team a mile away when their guys quit and they're out on their head coach internally, and you can just feel the wind's out of their sails. That's not been the case. It wasn't the case last year for Billy Napier. It's not the case this year. In a slow start, they come out and they bring the fight to Texas. So if you're a Florida fan, obviously there's a lot that you're encouraged by there. The downside, go look at Florida's schedule the rest of the way. I mean, we talked about it coming into the season. It's the toughest schedule in the SEC this year. So great that you got to win over Texas. Now you got to do it for another 6 weeks.
There was another Saturday night Big 12 game, and as you mentioned, inside the Big 12, check that out with Taylor and company. And I love the effort that people are putting forth on covering the Big 12 this year, and you're a big part of that. But it's noticeable for those who have followed the league for a long time. But how much of a chance do you give Arizona at home against BYU on Saturday night? 2.5 points favorites are the Cougs rolling in there. Been very impressed with Bear Bachmeier, and they're just solid all around. But how much of a fit do you think the Wildcats can potentially give them on Saturday?
Yeah, 100% give them a shot to win this game. I don't think there's any question Arizona could pull. And, you say spoiler, like you just mentioned, they're inside of a field goal dogs in this game, and they're at home. I think BYU's done such a good job of protecting Bear Bachmeier in the first part of the season with play calling and design. And he had some opportunities a week ago where they hit some shot plays, and I thought it was his best downfield passing so far this season. He also had some turnovers, had a fumble get away from him, threw a pick on a screen where he should be able to recognize you got to just throw that one in the dirt. So he had some freshman mistakes in there. If you can force some of that against Bear Bachmeier, get them into obvious passing downs, which I think Arizona is capable of doing, Arizona could 100% win this game. There's no question in my mind. They have the potential to win this game. This is not some David and Goliath game. BYU on the other side, I'll say it again, they've done such a good job playing complementary football in all three phases. They don't beat themselves in special teams. They don't have a ton of penalties. Their defense is extremely physical. And when you have a freshman quarterback, you got to do all those things, because right now, if you had Jake Retzlaff, you're probably a different version of yourself on offense. Bear Bachmeier is not Jake Retzlaff. He's a good player, but he's still a freshman. And they're not asking him to do a ton right now. A lot of it is simple 1 to 2 reads, and he's executing. He's doing a great job as a freshman right now in leading that offense. This is by far the biggest challenge that BYU's had so far this season. The only real road test they had was at East Carolina. Arizona is a much better team than East Carolina.
Go kick some ass tonight, Taylor. Thanks for your time, buddy. And Saturday, too. We always appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.